Hey everyone, it's Darren here. We audition, and I am here with Greg Apps, casting director extraordinaire from Australia. How you doing, Greg?
Pretty good, Darren. You?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today or tomorrow, as it is for you right over there. So everyone, Greg's been on the site doing different sessions. He's been doing general meetings and advice sessions with the actors. He also casts a lot of stuff. Greg, I'm going to give you the floor for a second. A
Sure.
lot of our actors will know a lot of your work, like Mission Impossible 2. You discovered Russell Crowe in Romper Stomper, wasn't it? And Eric Banner in Chopper.
hmm
But tell us a bit more about some of your work and your background.
Look, I started as an actor, and it's kind of it's up well over 40 years ago now. I did my first job in my final year of high school as an actor,
Right.
and so I worked as an actor, but just sort of found myself being sitting in the same waiting rooms opposite the same actors, competing with the same actors as we all do, as we
Yes.
all do.
Yeah.
And then I went into casting, and and the first thing that my acting friend said to me says, "Don't you miss casting?" And I'm going, "No, because now I get to create every role." And it is that. It's sort of like, casting is an extension of acting because you are in character creation. And that's very much the way I see it. And that's the way I encourage actors in my online training. It's about encouraging the actors go further. I did a kind of a Facebook Live just recently, and I poo-pooed the kind of the whole attitude that sort of many theatre actors have, that on screen less is more. No. Less is not more. Less is less. Less is definitely less. You can do more. You can fill the frame, and that's the kind of the empowerment that actors don't understand, and that's why I love self-taping, because of the fact that it's just a kind of a way for actors to shine. But I'm still a casting director now. I was the president of the Casting Guild in Australia. I was on the board of the Australian Film Institute, which is the kind of the academy, the Australian version of the academy. So I've cast over 80 films, still casting now. Interestingly enough, you brought up the kind of the actors that we were able to sort of launch careers with. It's because that was back in a day when the producer and the director and myself sat in a room and we made a decision, and that was it. The filmmakers chose who were the leads in the film. But these days, of course, there's so many people with a say in who's that, and most of them are kind of business people,
Yes.
corporates, executives, rather than filmmakers per se. So it's a different beast, the industry right now.
Yeah, actually, I was just listening to a podcast with Marcy Liroff, who discovered Henry Thomas in ET, and she was saying the same thing about back in those days, there'd be directors giving roles in the room when they see that right performance. And these days,
Yeah.
it's networks, it's executives, it's advertisers. For any of our actors out there that have ever been for a network test, you'll know it's not unusual to go back 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times in the same day, and the room just grows with suits each time you go back in, and you're doing
Yes.
doing the same thing, wondering who the hell you're reading for. Um, so that's great, and obviously now, as you mentioned, you really love self tapes. You've been a big champion of self taping,
Mm.
as have we. Obviously, that's why we built this platform, is to
Sure.
encourage actors to firstly get used to doing things through video, but being able to find the right resources and partners for their self tapes, because that's not going away. Self tapes are getting more and more and more normal, especially in areas such as Atlanta or the Southeast, where pretty much self taping is the absolute norm. But even New York and LA and London, that's happening way more now. And so what I wanted to talk to you about, Greg, was in terms of the actors that are coming to our system. They
Mm.
are people that understand technology. They are using technology to, help themselves get better self tapes, help themselves find readers so their acting can improve. What are your kind of major tips for a self taping actor, though? What should they be thinking about first and foremost?
Um, I the Where self-taping started was, and the way everybody considered it was, that it was asking the actor to do their own audition. So therefore, what they tried to do was recreate the kind of the audition space, but the casting director space, the audition in the room. But the thing is, the casting director's space is the casting director's creative space. That's where we go, and it's set up so that we can see a lot of people in a short space of time and make sure that everybody conforms. Because it's the same frame size and all sorts of things, lots of sames, in fact. Whereas the self-tape space is the actor's creative space. I mean, think of this: if you were in the casting director's room and you thought, "Gee, I'd just love to do another one," do you get that choice? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because the casting director space, but in the self-tape space, you can. So many times in terms of, we have a course called the self-taping school, and I think many people regard it as kind of, two points I want to make. They regard it as a technical skill you have. Oh, self-taping, you've got to be technical. No, you don't. On the contrary, you actually have the opportunity to be creative and to be more expansive than you can be in the room. Because how many times have you walked into the room and said, "Oh, I'd really like to sit. I think this character would sit," and they go, "No, please stand." And why?
Yeah.
Because the camera's locked off. And so now suddenly some of your creative choices have been taken away from you. And the second point I want to make is that actors think that it is about sort of, recreating the page. It's that it's a bit, I think there's a kind of a subconscious feeling of actors that sort of, when we're auditioning you, we're watching the page, making sure you get it all right. And the answer is so far from that. We're watching the screen. And that is a communication tool. The screen and the frame that you sit in is a communications tool. And that's kind of the empowerment that I try and pass on to actors, that it's not just that sort of, it's a new set of rules for a self-tape rather than an audition in the room. It's a set of rules where you write the book.
Right.
And we've seen them now. I think there's a kind of a journey now. I'm seeing self-tapes now online and sort of in my inbox, where actors have just taken the freedom and the ownership of the character and ownership of the frame, and they've sort of now they've delivered a kind of a self-test which leaves a memory.
Because of the choices they made in their performance, or in the way they framed it, or what?
Their performance, but when you say the frame, it's not that they've got to use some oblique angle with their camera. They haven't, as I say, it's not a case of a technical thing. You can still lock off the camera, but what you can do is you now can take freedoms with that frame, whereas, and I know there's many casting directors who will say, look straight at the reader.
Yeah.
But sort of, that's actually now structuring the space. It's kind of, again, taking away your freedoms.
Yeah. So in terms of a technical sense, though, you mentioned that casting director has their space and it's set up. We all know what that looks like. It's a studio. It's some blank walls. It's kind of harsh lighting and not the best environment a lot of the times. Obviously, now most people's self-tapes look the same way. Now, are we doing that because that's what's expected, or should people be having a blank wall? If so, what color should that wall be? These are questions we get asked all the time. So if you were doing your self-tape, is it okay to have things, a regular background behind you, or do you need a blank background? Do you need certain lighting?
Okay. You're sitting there and you've kind of, and you've got your space, and you would have manufactured that space. You would have, I'm going to use the word, art directed that space. I've art directed this space.
Right.
This is the space, this is the office of a casting director, but I want to make sure it looks like the office of a casting director.
Right.
Provided that I am the most important thing in the frame in regards to the kind of the energy, the passion, the kind of, the kind of the way I speak, as you are. Provided you are the main point of focus, I don't believe you need a plain background.
Yeah.
I think one of the things about going away from a plain wall that is a critical factor is just to make sure sound is good. But I bought a kind of a chest mic on Amazon the other day for less than $20.
A lapel mic.
Delivered to my home.
Yeah.
And I'm in country Australia, so therefore it's like, it is not hard. It is a connected world, and that's what I'd say about the kind of the self-tape. The self-tape is not a kind of a sterile, structured space like the casting director space is. It's a form of communication. You can record whatever you want. I mean, wow. And the kind of the facility that you've set up. Interesting to hear that sort of, you started sort of, the concept was came up 4 years ago when it was We Rehearse,
Yeah.
where you were just trying to connect actors. But now you've taken the next step, which is We Audition, and so now it's not just connecting actor to actor, it's connecting actor and their work to casting directors, to producers, to directors. I've found a kind of a big take-up, an enormous take-up with kind of short films and student films. And they're all the kind of the independent films that a starting out actor can really access. As you mentioned, in terms of a network test where there might be 25 kind of, stakeholders in the room, all with a say. The thing is, when you get back to those kind of student filmmakers, short filmmakers, no, they've got the say, and you can connect to them more personally, more kind of, directly than you can with kind of, a network.
And that's really one of the things that, we like about this system is for an independent filmmaker where budget is restrictive, they can use this system and literally knock out a casting studio for a big part of the cost, because they could do their pre-reads online like this, and then only see those. They wouldn't waste any time seeing the wrong actors, because you could go through the actors very quickly until you've got your shortlist, and then you might want to see them in person, or you might want self-tapes or whatever. And for the actors, it gives them a chance to actually interact and get some redirection, which is good.
Yeah, but carrying that idea forward, I mean, everybody in LA wants to get a meeting. Will you get a meeting? Will so and so take a meeting with me? Blah blah blah. Won't every meeting, that first meeting, won't that always be kind of online now? Won't that always be in this format, with this kind of platform, this kind of technological connection?
Yeah, well, we think it should, just because it's more efficient for both sides. For the casting director, it's way quicker. For the actor, it's way quicker. Nobody's getting in their cars, driving across town, spending all that money, polluting the environment. They can just do this quickly. And our hope is that if it's easier and quicker for casting to meet more actors, then the opportunities will get out there more, and it stops being such a closed shop, because the talent is out there, and the talent doesn't have to be geographically located. And again, that coming back to self-tapes, that's what I love as an actor for self-tapes personally, is that I can be anywhere and do them. So I can actually be on another job on a location, and on my day off, I could self-tape for you in Australia, and technology has allowed me to do that. Whereas when I started out acting, I knew who you were, but I had no access to you at all, because you were in Australia, I was in London, and except for the occasional crossover job that might have happened, those opportunities would have stayed in their respective countries.
You started that conversation to say, I think it should happen that way. No, it will.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. I guarantee the first meeting you have with everybody, the first audition you have with everybody, will be with a self-tape.
Yeah.
When do you need to be face to face? When there's 25 people in the room, basically.
Right.
When there's kind of all the people.
When everything's on the line at that last thing. So Greg, your self-tape school then. So talk me through what if an actor wanted to get involved in that, because like you said at the start of this interview, you're actively casting on various projects, but you also do this how long is it? A 6-week course?
It's a 6-week course, yeah.
A 6-week self-tape course that's really designed to help an actor navigate the different components of a self-tape, so that when they get those opportunities, they can deliver on that really, really well. So tell us, if somebody wants to take part in your course, what are the different sort of stages of it, and how does it work? How do the modules work?
It's 6 weeks.
Yep.
There's lessons each week that sort of take you through the kind of the concepts. And I mean, I got to say, my thinking is counterintuitive. I do think outside the square. And in fact, that's one of the kind of the titles of one of the topics because it is. This is a square, and I want you to think outside of it. And people don't. So it's about empowering you to take the freedom that is in the frame. The kind of the platform I say is, I want you to take ownership of the frame. And if you take ownership of the frame, you can then take ownership of the character. And it's only when you take ownership of the character that the message to the casting director is strong, indelible, and memorable. So it's 6 weeks of lessons. Each week you audition. We provide the scenes, and each week, and there's a different genre each week.
Right.
Soap opera, prime time, drama, major drama, feature film, romantic comedy. And each week I get on and I watch your tape and I provide feedback. I mean, just that in itself the idea of a casting director looking at your tape and looking at it all the way through to the end.
And so, Greg, the next section of the self-tape school is them actually doing auditions in different genres, right?
It's a different genre each week. There's a selection of scenes. You record the scene. People say, well, what do I need? What do I need? I said, people have done it on an iPhone. You don't need, and that's the beauty of it. Not the beauty of self-taping, the beauty of the self-taping course that I run, but self-taping in general. So therefore, you record the scene, you upload it to Vimeo. The other step in the process is also, because we share a Vimeo page, there's a Vimeo page shared with that group. Now what you get to see is you get to see what I see as a casting director. You get to see 6 or 8 actors auditioning for the same role. Imagine that. You get to sort of see people going for exactly the same role, see their choices, what they came up with. And I think that was always an important component to the course for me, that sort of allowed an actor to sit here in my seat and to see what I see. But as I say, I see all the tapes and I see them all the way through, unlike sort of the process when you're doing an audition. And I give you feedback. I record a QuickTime, an audio file. We share it in Dropbox. And so now suddenly you get to sort of hear me. I talk. It's one-on-one. The fundamentals of it is not dissimilar to the sort of workshop the casting director workshop you do. But think of the casting director workshop. It's a 4-hour workshop. You get to spend about 8 minutes in front of camera.
Right.
They give you feedback on your 8 minutes, and now you sit and you watch other people, but it's kind of like you're not engaged.
Yeah.
But in this course, I figure you probably need to invest about somewhere between 2 and 4 hours a week, depending on how committed you are to the course. And from that, it's all kind of, it's not one-on-one time, but you're sitting with a lesson, you're sitting with your feedback, you're sitting with, doing your piece. As I say, there's webinars, there's 2 webinars structured throughout the course so that you're always engaged. It's like it's being part of a community.
Yeah.
It's being part of an acting group.
Well, and one of the things that I like about this is in between those lessons as well, the actors could get together on their own and carry on, redoing and learning things. We did a self-tape challenge through the site recently, where we literally just challenged our members to do one self-tape every single day for 14 days. And we said, doesn't matter if you don't have an audition, pick an old scene. If you pick something off the internet, just make sure that you commit and make a habit of going on there, picking a partner and doing a self-tape every day. Quite a few actors did it, and their response at the end of it was amazing. I had people emailing me saying, it was tough to get into the habit, but once I did, I feel like I've improved leaps and bounds just by doing that every day. Because the problem is most actors aren't getting that many opportunities. And then they get the self-taping for the big show that they've wanted to audition for, and it's a mad hurry to not only get into the role and do your work as an actor, but think about setting up your self-tape studio and, do I have this right plug? The batteries went in this. That's stuff that I tell people you shouldn't be thinking about that at the last minute. That stuff should be ready to go. You should be as on autopilot setting up your self-tape gear as you are when you get in the car and drive to the store.
Yeah. I think the other point to keep in mind too, Darren, is that sort of, so you mentioned actors don't get a lot of opportunities. So where are the opportunities? You get a scene and you run it across your kitchen table. You get a scene and you do it in a workshop in a cold, drafty theatre or something like that, in a kind of a rehearsal hall or something like that. No. We communicate with camera.
Yeah.
We communicate visually. You should be doing every one of your runs on every piece you do, right from the first run, on camera. Right. Even if it's an iPhone.
Just to get used to that, yeah.
Just to form that habit, and not just to form the habit of getting in front of camera, but now suddenly you've got an assessment of your work. You can develop objectivity about your work because now you can see it back.
Yeah.
You can see it. And I know we all watch a tape and everybody looks natural except for ourselves. I get that. That's kind of, that just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to conquer that hurdle, that speed bump.
Right, and talking about hurdles, another hurdle I hear from actors is, but I don't have anyone to read with. And so that's why we created this system, because that's no longer an excuse, because you could be doing 10 self-tapes a day and find a partner all day long. And you can also be somebody else's partner on this system. So even when you're not a busy actor auditioning, you could still be working your muscle, helping somebody else, and creating great relationships in the process. And that's the same as what I see here is we've now got a relationship from Australia to LA. We haven't met before, but we've managed to meet through the art of self-taping. So it's brilliant in that way.
I have
so I'm just going to
strong personal relationships with people I've never met face to face.
There you go. There you go. And Greg, I want to blow your trumpet for you for a second here as well, because when you said about that the actor on your school gets very specific feedback from you watching their whole tape. I mean, we're talking somebody that's cast literally hundreds of projects. It's not somebody that was a casting assistant once on a show. So you have the broad gamut of information, and you've been through, you know, I think you said how many years of casting?
37,
37 years, everything from massive Tom Cruise movies to digital web series, right? So there's nothing you haven't seen. And so for the actor, I think that's really important, because there's so many theories in this industry, and a lot of them are correct and a lot of them aren't correct. But what is definite is not everything's the same. But someone with your breadth of experience could definitely hone in on the differences of what works in a self-tape and what doesn't, because you've literally seen thousands of them.
Yeah. I think also you reach a stage in your career. I mean, you know, I'm famous for saying that, not famous for saying, no, I'm famous in my own mind for saying, I've done everything I need. I've achieved everything I need to achieve in casting. That said, I mean, I'll work the people that I've worked with. I mean, the reason we're in this industry is because we love the people.
Right.
We love there's some tosses. There are some tosses. Generally speaking, we love it because we love the family. We love our film community family. And, you know, I'll crawl across broken glass to work with the people that I love. But I'm not about to cross the road to work with somebody who's not going to inspire me. I'm not. As I say, I've achieved everything I want to achieve in casting, and now it's time to give back. And there's just a kind of there's a gap in the kind of the education journey of an actor, because all the kind of the education they do is what to do once you've got the job.
Right.
But no one teaches you how to get the job in the first place, and that's specifically kind of honing in on what I want to achieve with self-taping school with my partner Robin. That the kind of the empowerment we're giving actors is to make you understand that you are not a pawn. You are not just sort of sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. You can actually be proactive about creating opportunities. One more thing I just want to say in that regard is that the decision, the process of sort of deciding whether to audition an actor or not, in terms of asking them to do a self-tape, is now done like that. Meaning it's not a deeply considered consideration to ask for a self-tape. You might be shocked about that. No. That means that's opportunity for you. It means you can influence that decision. You can influence that decision without, you know, using social media, using various tools.
Right.
You don't have to go through the formal steps of your agent. You don't have to wish for a kind of an audition in the room. I just want to tell you one story about a major. Well, I'll tell you, it's Jai Hawley, who sort of, you know, was in. He was in one of the kind of the Jack Reacher films. He was also in one of the kind of the Die Hard film. And I'd ask him to audition, and his agent would come back to me and say, Jai would love to audition, but he's not available. Is it okay if he does a self-test? Now I'm going back a few years ago. But he did that because he wanted creative control. He wanted creative control of his audition.
Yeah.
It was his audition, his version of the character, and therefore he didn't want a casting director going, no, I don't think it's like that. Or the kind of let's face it, the tension, the nerves that you get of going into the room. No, do it at home. Do it at home.
Right, and that's if you're an actor of a certain level, that's something you can do. But talking about actors that aren't getting in the room, is there a way for them to get a self-tape to a casting director for a role if they've not been requested for it?
Well, you know, for my way of thinking, if you're thinking programs like, and I'll just use an example, you know, old examples, The Wire, Sons of Anarchy, Orange is the New Black, even Sex in the City, you know what they want. You know what they want. So therefore, you are able to absolutely hone in and create a piece of tape. And that how long does it have to be? How long are casting directors saying they watch someone's tape for? It's like it's somewhere between the 8 and 15-second mark.
Yeah.
Therefore, and as I say, and because the decision to say let's ask them to do a self-tape is an immediate, instinctive decision from the point of view of a casting director, you don't need to deliver. If I'm in Sons of Anarchy and you put in front of me, if I'm casting Sons of Anarchy and you put in front of me a character that has that attitude, that testosterone, even if it's a female character,
yeah,
I'll say, get her to do a self-tape. I'll call to my assistant and say, can we get her to do a self-tape?
So
that's how long the choice took.
You're thinking of, like, for an actor to actually film something, you know, maybe a former scene of the show or something in the right vein, to send to a casting director hoping to get the real audition.
You're saying he has to record a scene. Why does he have to record a whole scene? I'm not going to watch the whole scene.
Right. So just some essence.
The decision I'm making at the moment is just, do I want to get a self-tape? Do I want to see more?
Right.
You think that self-taping is the self-tape. Look, if the self-tape is commissioned by the casting director, it's asked for, then yes, you're going for a specific role. But see, I believe there is a potential for self-taping just to create an interest in you. If you like, it's a walking, talking headshot.
Right. Okay.
Now, that being the case, it doesn't have to be a full scene. I mean, you know, when somebody just walks in, we know when somebody just walks onto the frame, we know into this frame, we know whether we want to see more of them.
Right.
And I think it's actually smarter to deliver 10, 15, 20 seconds and want them asking more. And what are they going to ask for? The concept of self-taping school is not solely the technical, and in fact, it's very, very little of the technical. And it is not about, see, the difference, I believe there's a difference between a self-test and a self-tape. And a self-tape is when you tape yourself in the best light possible. And I don't mean the light, I mean the kind of, you know, in a way that actually leaves an indelible memory with the casting director. And if you, as I say, if you're auditioning for something as iconic as True Detective or as Sons of Anarchy, you know exactly what's going to leave a memory with them. Capture that. It only has to be sort of, as I say, 10, 15 seconds. And now you are in their memory to try you for the next time, to try you for something else. They think of you.
Yeah.
That's the platform I build self-taping school on. And you get to the end of it, and as you said with your members when they did a self-tape a day, they just feel they want to get back in front of a camera, as we all do. We all want to be, well, when you're an actor, we all want to be in front of a camera, and that's the place to be. Whereas we don't understand, we don't appreciate now how the digital age has changed the steps, the opportunities for getting in front of a camera. So that's what self-taping school is all about. It's not about the technical. It's about the opportunities that exist now in the digital age, and how to take advantage of them, and how to use the self-taping tool to speak to connect to communicate, to leave a memory with what I call the decision makers in the industry.
Yeah, the buyers of your product.
The buyers, absolutely.
So that's starting on November 5th, yeah?
November 5 we start the next course, yes.
So how can actors find that and get in touch with you about that?
I'll send you a link so that, you know, if there's somewhere you can post it, but failing that, it's just go to our website, theauditiontechnique.com.
And just before November the 5th, they can go there, find all the details, and sign up. And we'll put the link below this interview as well. So before we go, Greg, one last question. Let's leave on something fun. What's the worst first 10 seconds of a self-tape you've ever seen?
Oh, when nothing happens. I mean, I've seen self-tapes, or demo reels maybe, and it says, Darren, and then it goes, your agent, and then it goes a photo, and I'm going, I'm out. I've got other things to do. I'm too busy. You know.
Yeah.
I always, for instance, when I'm casting, if they ask for a slate, I say put the slate at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing, if you do a slate at the start, many times when we're seeing so many people, they'll make a decision on your slate. They haven't even seen your work. I say get into the character immediately.
Yeah.
Get into your character immediately, because now you've got them wanting to see more. The slate is now to meet the person, but I want the actor to deliver the character first, not the person behind that. There's a lot of advice in self-taping school based on all of that.
Yeah.
Because what I'm sharing with is what I see, what the casting director says.
And one little nugget like that, see, can change everything. Because luckily, I'm proud to say my reel opens with my first line of action, not any of the other stuff. But I've seen friends send me their self-tapes, and like you said, there's a montage, and you just like get into it. I've seen friends start their self-tapes on the other actor because they're more famous, or they're trying to give context to the scene and all these things. Whereas it's like, no, start on you, get into your stuff. Because it's your digital business card, isn't it?
Demo reels is something I talk a lot about, because what are the kind of the tried and true kind of rules that you follow, and one is always use on-screen work. But see, I believe if you deliver on-screen work of a very small character where you've only got 3 lines in the scene, that will lead to more opportunities of getting roles of 3 lines. Whereas you've done that. You want to move on from that.
Yeah.
So therefore, by all means, because that's on your resume. We can see that anytime. Deliver a character that actually grabs us and makes us think, I want to see more of this person. I want to see more of what they can do.
Very cool.
That's the thinking. If you think of the great actors, they can take any scene, any moment. Will Smith could stand there in front of camera and say, Tell us about his trip to the supermarket, and 3 lines into it, you're going, yeah, get a self-test off this guy. He's interested.
Yeah.
So that's more important than finding a scene that actually suits.
Awesome. That's been so helpful, and I'm sure everyone's going to find some great tips in this video. So thank you for doing that, Greg. Thanks for your time today. I know you're a busy guy, currently like casting a bunch of stuff, so I'll let you go. But thanks for me and from all of the We Audition community. We're really grateful to have you on the system.
And thank you, Darren, for this platform, this facility. You are just again extending that connection between actors and the industry.
That's what we're trying to do. Thanks, Greg.